Sometimes the biggest changes happen where you least expect them. A law that could completely redefine the US dollar just passed, but guess what? It wasn't in some big finance bill. It was actually hidden inside a housing act. Today, we're diving deep into Title 10, a fascinating piece of legislation that just put a ticking clock on the creation of an American digital dollar. Let's get into it.
But first, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. This is a major change to the Federal Reserve Act, the very foundation of our monetary system. So why was it tucked away in a law about housing? Seriously, why? That's the big mystery we're going to solve today.
And it turns out where this law was hidden is actually a huge part of the story. Buried deep inside this seemingly unrelated Housing Act is a brand new and pretty critical section that's rewriting the rules for digital money in the United States. So what this law, Title 10, actually does is it shoves this brand new section, Section 16A, right into the Federal Reserve Act. And this is not just some small adjustment. It's a fundamental change that lays out a very specific and, as we'll see, a very temporary roadmap for a potential U.S. digital dollar.
Okay, so to really understand what this law prohibits, and maybe more importantly what it allows, we first need to get crystal clear on what it's even talking about. The law itself gives us a very precise definition of what a central bank digital currency is. At its heart, a central bank digital currency, or a CBDC, is defined as a digital asset that's a direct liability of the Federal Reserve. Now, that sounds simple enough, but the law gets way more specific, breaking it down into 4 key parts. Let's walk through them. First up, the easy one. It has to be based on our money. To be a US CBDC, it has to be denominated in United States dollars. Simple enough.
Second, and this is important, it has to be officially recognized as United States currency. This means it's not just some digital token. It would be legal tender. It has to be accepted for all debts, just like the cash you have in your wallet right now.
All right, now this next one, this is the real game changer. A CBDC would be a direct liability of the Federal Reserve. This is a massive shift from how things work today. Right now, the money in your bank account is a liability of that commercial bank. With a CBDC, you'd basically be holding an account directly with the Fed itself.
And finally, for it to count as a CBDC under this law, it has to be for everybody. It needs to be widely available to the general public, not just some wholesale tool that only banks can use. You can think of it like a digital version of public money.
Okay, so we've got our 4-part definition locked in. Now we can finally get to the heart of what this law does, and it kicks off with a very clear, very strong prohibition.
Subsection B of the law does not mess around. It says flat out that the Federal Reserve may not issue a central bank digital currency, and that means not directly to people or indirectly through a bank. So looking at this, you'd think that's it, right? Case closed. No digital dollar for the US. Well, not so fast. This is where the law has a massive twist waiting for us. And this is where things get really, really interesting. The very next part of the law carves out this huge exception to that total ban we just saw, and the whole thing pivots on one single critical idea: privacy. Now, the exact wording here is everything. The law says the ban does not apply to any digital dollar that is, and I quote, open, permissionless, and private. So what does that mean? Open and permissionless means anyone can use it without getting approval, just like cash. And private means it has to protect your privacy in the exact same way that physical cash does. So what does this all add up to? Well, the law is basically creating a legal path for a digital dollar, but only if it behaves like digital cash. It can't be some kind of surveillance tool. It has to be just as open, just as accessible, and just as anonymous as handing somebody a $20 bill. But hold on, there is one last crucial piece to this puzzle. This entire legal framework, the ban and the privacy exception, it's not permanent. The whole thing actually comes with an expiration date. Yup, 2030. This entire section of the Federal Reserve Act is officially on a timer. This timeline really lays it out. Right now, today, the ban and its privacy exception are the law of the land. But on December 31st, 2030, the law says this entire Section 16A just ceases to be effective. It basically vanishes from the law books. Poof. Which brings us right back to where we started. Why on earth was this complex temporary monetary policy stuffed into a housing bill? Well, analysis of the whole thing points to a couple of different possibilities for the strategy behind it. So one view is that it was a strategic move, right? You attach a controversial policy to a bill that absolutely has to pass to make sure it becomes law. The other, maybe less charitable view, is that it just shows a lack of discipline, that lawmakers aren't keeping their bills focused on one topic. The sources don't really pick a side here, they just lay out both possibilities.
So what's the bottom line here? Title 10 is not a simple ban. It's really a temporary, conditional framework. It's basically telling the Federal Reserve you are banned from creating a centralized, easy-to-surveil digital dollar. But you are allowed to create one that works like private digital cash. Oh, and by the way, the clock is ticking. You've got until 2030 to figure it out.
So in the end, this law, the one hidden in plain sight, has pretty much fired the starting gun on the race to define the future of American money. It has set the terms for the whole debate, and it puts individual privacy right at the very center of it all. And with that hard deadline of 2030, it leaves all of us with one huge question. What kind of digital dollar will America choose before time runs out?